What's up everyone, it's Tim from TimPlaysAGame, here with tips and tricks for Turf War and Splatoon 2 for the Nintendo Switch. Today we'll talk about some basic preparations you can make before the match, and strategies that can save you during the match to help you increase your team's chances of winning. Let's start with tip number 1. Pick a weapon that works well on both stages. First, let's talk about selecting your weapon. You want to pick a weapon that works well on both of the current stages. Some weapons work well on big and wide open stages like Starfish Main Stage and Sturgeon Shipyard, but may not work well on smaller stages like Port Mackerel. It's important to try different weapons on different stages and see which ones work best for you. You should also use gear that complements your weapon. For example, the run speed up and swim speed up abilities make it easier to move around the stage and cover more ground. Tip number 2. Build up your special gauge at the beginning. Once the match begins, try to build up your special weapon gauge as much as you can. Going into battle with a readied special weapon is a great way to gain an early advantage over the opposing team. Be very careful doing this since the other team may be planning to do the same. Practice with every type of special weapon and learn how to use it effectively. Tip number 3. Use your weapon and sub-weapon together strategically. In addition to your main weapon, you also have a sub-weapon that you can use to complement your main weapon. For example, the Splatter Shot has the Burst Bomb as its sub-weapon, which can be used in tandem to take out your opponent easily. Be very careful when using your sub-weapon because it uses a lot of your ink. You can use gear with Ink Saver main and Ink Saver sub-abilities to avoid running out of ink often. Tip number 4. Keep an eye on your ink tank. Nothing is worse than being in the heat of battle and running out of ink. To avoid this, it is a good idea to make sure your ink tank stays filled and refill it when possible. Gear with the Ink Saver main, Ink Saver sub, and Ink Recovery Up abilities can be very helpful in Turf War to avoid running out of ink. As previously stated, be careful using your sub weapon often, as it depletes your ink tank substantially when used. Tip number 5. Keep checking the map. In Turf War, you're going to want to keep your opponents pushed back towards their respawn point. However, some sneaky squids may slide by you and begin inking your turf without you knowing. Keep checking the map by hitting the X button to get a bird's eye view of the area and avoid your opponent sneaking up behind you. You can also check the map to see where your opponents are going and prepare a counter-strike. Tip number 6. Be careful when using the super jump. Super jumping is a great way to jump back into the battle after being splatted or to get to a teammate who may need your help. However, this useful technique can leave you quite vulnerable when landing. An indicator is placed on the ground when you land after super jumping, and opponents will usually be lying in wait for you to land. You can equip gear with the drop roller ability to roll after landing by tilting. Throwing an ink bomb upon landing can also pick up an easy splat if they're not quick. Tip number 7. Help your teammates when you can. Splatoon 2 is a team game, and you will need your teammates' support if you hope to win in Turf War. If you see one of your teammates being targeted by enemy attacks, try to assist them to the best of your ability. Your teammates can also be very beneficial to you. If you find yourself being overwhelmed by opponents' attacks, stick close to your teammates for assistance. This is the beauty of teamwork. Tip number 8. Keep the center area controlled. After playing Turf War for a while, you'll notice that the most contested area is the center of the map. If you can keep this area under your team's control until the end and push the opposing team back to their spawn point, you are guaranteed to win. A good way to take the center is to try and find a way around the opposing team. You can sneak by them and start inking the area near their spawn, forcing them to retreat. You can also attack them from behind and really catch them off guard. Be cunning and quick is a good way to control the flow of battle. Tip number 9. Move towards the enemy spawn point in the last 30 seconds. The last 30 seconds of Turf War are critical. After making sure you have control of the center and are keeping the enemy team controlled, the last 30 seconds of the match is the time to deliver the finishing blow by moving to the enemy spawn point. Be careful when making this move. I have seen teams go from dominating to losing in the last 30 second span because they couldn't keep the dominance over the other team. And finally, tip number 10. Cover as much as you can in the last few seconds. This really goes without saying, but every little bit of ink you lay down in the last seconds of turf war is crucial to winning. Turf war can be won in as little as a 0.1% difference. Try to stay alive in the last few seconds and not get splatted. If enough of your team gets splatted in the last seconds of turf war, it may give the opposing team enough time to cover enough turf to get the win. A good strategy to use is to throw a bomb into the enemy's covered turf at the final second of the game. This difference is minor, but it may be just enough to give your team a close victory to a hard-fought match. This has been Tips and Tricks for Turf War and Splatoon 2. If you have any tips of your own that I may have missed, please let me know in the comments section below. Make sure you are subscribed to Tim Plays a Game and stay tuned for more tips and tricks videos. This is Tim from Tim Plays a Game signing off, and good night.